Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. Madam Clerk, I understand we have regrets from Councillor Elgar, who's at another meeting and promises to try to join us in progress. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, Council? Thank you. How about a motion to move into Committee of the Whole? Councillor Lapworth, Councillor Dudek, all those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Our first item of business is the consent item, number 1 on the agenda, which is the condominium agreement and laneway lease agreement for 394 Lakeshore. Council, how do you wish to proceed? Councillor Dudek.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. That brings us to our confidential consent item. How do you wish to deal with that? Councillor Dudek.
Your Worship, I'd like to go in camera at the appropriate time. I have questions to ask, maybe if you want to hold it to the end of the meeting.
Okay, we'll slip it to the back of the meeting. Then that brings us to our first public hearing item. And this is the public meeting report for the zoning bylaw amendment for Moraine Investments. And we have a presentation that I want everyone to have a chance to hear. But before that, I need to make a small announcement. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submission to the Town of Oakville in respect of a proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and/or plan of subdivision or condominium, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Town Council to the Ontario Municipal Board and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. And with that, if everyone will give their attention to Mr. Barrett, he'll summarize the matter before you, Council, for the benefit of the public and everyone else. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor Burden and members of Council. Thank you, Mayor Burden and members of Council. This is the statutory public meeting related to a zoning bylaw amendment application submitted by Moraine Investments Limited to permit a golf practice facility. The report can be found on page 63 to 86 of tonight's agenda. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to obtain any public input related to this application. No recommendation on the application is proposed tonight. Staff will return in the future following the comprehensive review of the application with a recommendation report. As can be seen by the air photo, the surrounding area is rural in nature, with the exception of Halton Region's biosolids facility located to the east. The applicant is proposing to develop the lands for use as a golf practice facility, inclusive of a driving range, 6-hole golf course, short game practice area, and a clubhouse with accessory parking. The existing woodlot is proposed to be conserved, together with a wetland and intermittent stream. In the Livable Oakville plan, the site is designated Parkway Belt. The site is also located within the Greenbelt plan and Parkway Belt West plan. Section 19 of Livable Oakville states that development within this designation shall be governed by the provisions of the Parkway Belt West plan. Section 5.5.1 of the Parkway Belt West plan states that recreational uses are permitted and defined as low density, low intensity outdoor recreational uses and associated buildings and structures that meet a certain criteria. Issues raised at the public information meeting include traffic, site access, impact and integration of the proposed development on adjacent properties, impacts, connectivity, and preservation of key natural heritage features, construction impacts, archaeological concerns, and servicing. Comments received at this public meeting will also be considered as part of the comprehensive review. In conclusion, Your Worship, staff put forth the following recommendation as shown for Council's consideration. Once again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to obtain any further public comment. The application remains in technical review. Staff will return to Council in the future with a recommendation report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, do you want to ask questions, or shall I poll the audience to see if there are questions from the public? All right. Do we have registered delegations? I believe we have 2 at least. No? 4. So would you call the first? And maybe the proponents would like to go last, or if those are proponents. Anyway.
First delegation is Kenneth White, here as treasurer of the Golf for the Physically Challenged.
Mr. White, welcome. Council looks forward to your questions. Our main business here is to identify concerns about the application or issues that might work against the application being approved. You're, of course, welcome to offer any other views that you may have, but those are our main concern.
I'm treasurer of Challenge Golf, which is a charitable organization which is supported by Family Golf, which is supported by Larry Armitage, who is the applicant in this matter. My organization, or this organization of which I'm treasurer, has existed since 1991. It's not something that just has happened. It helps people who have had strokes. They come to Family Golf. We have a golf cart to take them to covered tees. We have volunteers to look after it. I, as treasurer, can assure you that this costs the community nothing. It is the balls and so on are provided by Family Golf. They have storage area for our cart and for our special equipment, which allows the balls to run down and be used. We are most anxious that you give very serious consideration to this application and hopefully approve it pretty much as made, because we need the covered tees, we need the storage area. It's very important to the continuation of our charity. We provided the clerk with a more formal write-up, which I'm sure is in your papers. I don't think it would help to read it all here tonight.
Yeah, we have that.
I just want to make one more personal statement. I have lived in probably 3 of the best communities in Canada. I was born and brought up in Fredericton, which is a very livable community. From there, I went to Beaconsfield, Quebec, which is very comparable with, is more comparable with Oakville than Dorval is, I will say. But I will say this, Oakville is by far the most livable community I've been in so far, and it's people like Larry Armitage that have helped make it so. And I urge you to give very serious consideration and to approve his application.
Thank you very much for the recommendation and for the endorsement. And everyone on council works very hard to achieve that result, so I'm sure they all enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, the next delegation?
Next delegation is...
Oh, I'm sorry. We need the delegation back. Mr. White. Councillor
Sorry.
Dudek has a question for you.
Sorry, Mr. White. Not being familiar with your program, out of interest, do you get referrals from various agencies or caregivers in terms of referrals for the program and the use?
We place our brochures in the offices of doctors that are likely to come across people who need our services. They find their way to us usually, but it is run entirely by volunteers, and it is assisted by Mr. Armitage. We throw in $30 each per year, and that looks after the mailing and the computer. So it's being treasurer is a piece of cake, but it's quite a big operation because it's all volunteer. But there's nothing on the books about those things.
Great program that you're offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The next delegation, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Danny Ferran, who's also a board member of the Challenge Golf.
Mr. Foran, welcome.
Good evening.
Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you. Good evening, Honourable Mayor Burton and Honourable Councillors. My name is Danny Foran. I have been an active participant in the Challenge Golf program and was recently elected to the board. I have also been a resident of Oakville for 25 years. I am here to support in the strongest possible manner the rezoning and re-establishment of family golf on the Burnhamthorpe Road location. On September 27, 2012, 1 year ago this month, I suffered a serious stroke and was hospitalized, which hospitalized me for 4 months. The doctors at St. Mike's Hospital told me about 50% of stroke victims with a stroke of my severity do not survive. I am very thankful to be alive today. My stroke resulted from a bleed on the right side of my brain and affected the entire left side of my body. I could not walk for several months, and I still have no functional use of my left arm or hand. I am fortunate to have full use of my right arm, and because of challenge golf, have learned that I can still swing a golf club fairly well. Prior to my stroke, I loved participating in golf tournaments and would often go to Family Golf Center here in Oakville to practice golf with my daughters. During my 4 months in hospital, I often thought about my new life void of many of the active things I used to enjoy doing. Once I was discharged from hospital, I was unable to return to work at my old job and was looking for new activities to fill my days. My family found challenge golf on the internet. I was ecstatic that a group like this existed in Oakville. It was one of the few sports-related activities available to me. What has challenge golf done for me and for many other stroke survivors? It has given us a renewed purpose in life and helped us be part of an active, thriving Oakville community. For myself, challenge golf demonstrated that other stroke survivors were out there trying their best at swinging their golf clubs, and that helped me want to do the same. I can still recall my wife Rachel and my 2 daughters Jessica and Holly being so proud to tell our family and friends that I was golfing at Challenge Golf. This gave me encouragement to carry on trying other activities and to persevere in my recovery. There is an estimated 50,000 strokes in Canada each year, and about one stroke occurs every 10 minutes in Canada. About 315,000 Canadians are living with the effects of stroke. These statistics, unfortunately, point to the need for continued help for stroke survivors. This is another main reason that I strongly urge you to support the rezoning and re-establishment of family golf in Oakville. A program like Challenge Golf does not exist anywhere else in the GTA, and it is solely because of Family Golf Learning Center that the program is able to continue. Without the rezoning being passed, it is most likely our community will lose the benefit of having Family Golf Learning Center and Challenge Golf program will be unable to continue. Our group members really need the whole proposed family golf project to be approved. Some of our members cannot take the full sun for an extended period of time, and therefore we require covered tees. In conclusion, it is my hope that the rezoning bylaw is passed to enable our community and all current and future stroke survivors an opportunity to have family golf in Oakville. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Foran, for bringing your information. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Next delegation is Mr. Danny Kearns.
Mr. Kearns. Welcome.
Thank you. 2 Dannys. That must be Irish. Anyway, I'm a member of Family Golf, have been for many, many years. And thank God I'm able to play golf. Not very good. I have got lots of strokes, but they're the wrong kind. Anyway, the thing about this, I support the change, the new bylaw, or not the new bylaw, what do you call it, the new zoning. I was going to complain about not having family golf to go to. But that's, spilt milk, as my granny used to say. No good cribbing over spilt milk. But let's hope we're going to have family golf rezoned. We need it. I'm an old man, and with many, many, many friends that came to family golf daily, and we loved it. And I love to see the children that came and enjoyed it. It's just a blessing. I don't know how you guys lost that facility that we had, but we haven't lost it all. West Oakville will have the new one, we hope. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for coming and saying it. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
Kingsley Rowe.
Mr. Rowe? Welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here to speak on behalf of Larry Armitage and what he's been doing for the community in general. Golf is a game that was introduced to me some years ago, and I found it to be one of the most direct impacting sport that I've played in my life. I'm the founder and president of the National Junior Golf Academy. This was founded back in 1999. Larry called me and said, Kingsley, we do have this facility and we'd love to have your kids coming down. These are kids from the Jane and Finch corridor, from the St. Jamestown downtown, and from mainly at-risk areas. And Larry has opened his arms for these kids, and I dearly would like to have Larry continuing the good work that he has been doing over the years. Only this morning, I got a call from one of Larry's, one of the golfers who have been attending Larry's clinic for some years. And he said to me, oh, I'm so sorry that Larry is not going to be there. I said, be patient. There's a chance that Larry will be reestablishing himself. And because of these reasons, I would greatly endorse this program for Larry Armitage. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your information. Are there any more?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ms. Angela DeJanis.
Welcome. Council looks forward to your information.
I have to wear my glasses. Hi, my name's Angela DeGanis, and I'm an owner at 2363 Burnham Thorpe Road West, a residential owner. And I'm here speaking on behalf of my husband, myself, and one set of our neighbors who couldn't get here in time to sign in. First, let me say I think it is commendable the work that Family Golf does with different charities and outreach programs. And I don't mean to take away from that at all. However, I think we have to remember that Family Golf is a business. It's a successful business, and we should be viewing it as a business. It's not a charitable organization. As an owner on the street, my concerns, I have a few. One is presently all the fields that we're talking about here are planted with crops. We have a local farmer who has planted corn and soy in the fields. The region of Halton has designated all of this land as prime agriculture. So we're going to take away local food growing. So that's a concern. There's an insufficient water supply on site. From what I read in the reports, it appears there's enough water if you drill a well to support a residential dwelling. This means that Family Golf will be trucking in water, so we'll have water trucks coming down the street. As well, and I don't know if I read the environmental report correctly because I'm not an environmental engineer, but the natural runoff of the water and any treatment that might be applied to the grounds runs to the southeast, which means it is going to be running towards 16 Mile Creek. The construction of the new hospital at Third Line and Dundas has displaced an enormous amount of wildlife, and that wildlife is moving north. So it's coming, through the culverts, through 16 Mile Creek, and we're seeing the deer, the coyotes, all of the wildlife. So now if we're going to push more development, we're concerned where is it going to go. The anticipated number of cars visiting this business at peak, like during their peak season, is approximately 300 cars a day. So that's 300 going in and 300 coming out. And we're talking about a road that's in very poor repair, has no traffic lights, has 4 residential homes on it. That's it. There's 4 residences. There is the ranch riding stable, which does get some traffic, but 600 cars a day, so it's about 25 cars an hour, and we feel the road cannot support that, as well as the pollutants of that, again, with the wildlife in the area. Sorry, I'm just watching the time. A golf driving range just opened at the beginning of August on Bronte Road, just directly north of Burnham Thorpe. So not even a kilometer from where this proposed facility is going to be, and we don't see the need to have 2 facilities in such a close proximity. So the main concerns are the water availability, wildlife disruption, potential damage to 16 Mile Creek, vacating a local farmer, and the traffic. As well, we feel that allowing this development will be precedent setting. We have very little protected land left north of the 407, and if we allow this, it's going to set a precedent, we feel, that will allow further development, and we'll see all of our green belt going away. We have such a little voice in this process because, again, we're only 4 houses on the street. So we don't know if we're being heard, but we would like to be heard. We're concerned that the Family Golf Center is already advertising full-page ads in the Mississauga News and the Oakville Beaver, stating that they're opening in 2015, and it hasn't even been through the formal process. So I thank you for listening to me and hopefully hearing our concerns.
Thank you for bringing your concerns and your information. Are there questions, Council? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Miss Adriana Berza?
Welcome, Ms. Berza.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. I'm also a resident on Burnham Thorpe Road West. We live at 2381 Burnham Thorpe. And me, my husband, and 2 young children have been living there for more than 4 years. We bought this property, like most of our neighbors, because we like a lifestyle that is geared toward protecting the nature and towards living in the nature. And we feel that although it's commendable, all the charitable work that Family Golf is doing, we feel that this lifestyle will be interrupted and will be disturbed. That's one of my personal concerns. From a standpoint of overall concerns, I completely subscribe to what Angela was saying. Traffic will be probably one of the main issues on that road. At this point in time, if we have a pickup truck and the neighbors have a pickup truck, if both of us are coming at the same time from different directions, we have to yield to each other because the road is not wide enough to support 2 pickup trucks. We're not even talking about water hauling trucks or construction trucks or service trucks or whatever else. There's no lights on the street. The road is not marked. It's not even a 2-lane road. It's not wide enough. The sides of the road are collapsing. There have been some patches done in the past, but as soon as summer and after the winter, of course, there's huge holes in the road. At this point in time, when I'm walking out in the morning to drive my children to school and myself to work, I have to stay for 5 to 10 minutes to be able to enter on Bronte Road and to make a left turn. And that without even taking in consideration the fact that Family Golf will be opening at 8 o'clock in the morning when it's peak traffic time. So as I said, the road is the main concern. Following that, the other concern is the water supply. And even though they will be hauling trucks in, they will be also using, from what I understood, well water. At this point, in high hot summer months, our water supplies are scarce, and we have been faced with situations where we ran out of water, although on my property there's 2 wells. And the quality of the water is not poor, it's horrendous. Like, we had to invest a good amount of money to actually make water work for a single dwelling unit of 4 people. That and the safety of our children and our animals and the livestock that we have on the properties and the farms around us, if there's going to be such an increase in traffic, you have to realize that there are horses going up and down that road like every single day. Almost every other hour, there's horses going up and down from the businesses that we have in the area. And we have animals which are running up and down. We have cats, we have dogs, we have whatever else you want to name it, plus small children. And we have not chosen to live on a golf course. We have chosen to live on farmland. And that it's going to be all destroyed. On the other hand, I understand that there needs to be recreational facilities around Oakville, and I understand that the city is developing and it's adding more residential areas to it. But if the town has committed to keep a conservation area, maybe we should do our best to keep it a conservation area. And as much as the use of pesticide and fertilizer might not be a huge issue, it's still added to the environment, which is already precarious, and it's already been affected by salt and by infiltrations from the sewage plant and all that. The other concern that we had as a community on that road is why is the region not allowing a discussion around using another access road to that particular piece of land? And I'm not sure if you are aware that there has been discussion with the region about using the road that creates an access between Bronte Road and the biowaste plant. There is a pretty solid road up there that could be used, and that would avoid disturbing habitat land, because that's in the middle of no man's land. And I understood there has been some discussions going on, and there is a pushback from the region due to winter maintenance, which should not be the case because the facility is closed during the winter, from our understanding. And the same issues we have on our street. There's patches of ice. The winter servicing is not the greatest because it is a very small street with very few inhabitants. So those are some of our main concerns, and I would really appreciate if the council and yourself would take them in consideration and come to a mutual agreement that it is a land that we're trying to protect and a lifestyle we're trying to protect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for bringing your information. Any questions? Thank you, ma'am. I should add that not only will council take into account what we hear, but staff are doing that also. Another one?
David Benish.
Dennis? We'll learn from him.
Good evening. My name is David Benning, and I'm joined by my 12-year-old twin boys, Billy and Connor, in the audience. Probably not often you get 12-year-old guests in attendance. And I'm here to speak on behalf of Larry Armitage and the Family Golf Center and advocate on his behalf. When Larry told me of tonight's meeting and the council's review of the zoning variance, I specifically asked Larry if I could speak on his behalf. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity to do so. As city councilors, I'm sure you're charged with the fiduciary responsibility of balancing the needs of the residential community with the business community. Try to find that balance between the two. In that role, I respectfully submit that Family Golf Center is probably the most ideal business for the city of Oakville. I've known Larry Armitage for 4 years and cannot find a kinder, gentler gentleman that I've known. His concern for the environment, his concern for the community, his concern for society at large is unsurpassed among gentlemen I've met within the business community. Family Golf Center is unlike most other businesses that you see that come before you. As you've seen by some of the earlier speakers, they play a key societal role. This is not simply a golf center. This is not simply a driving range. As you can see by the speakers here, Larry opens his business up to all sorts of nonprofit and charitable groups. This is not done for his own advancement. This is not done with a profit motive. This is done because Larry has a passion for those of members of society that can be exposed to recreational activity that otherwise would not have the opportunity to do so. My 12-year-old sons have had the opportunity to learn to play golf at Family Golf Center. And as 12-year-olds, I asked them what they would say if they had the courage to stand up before you. And lacking the courage, they've asked me to speak on their behalf. And they said for them, the opportunity to learn at Larry's Center, to be coached by them, to interact with other kids from all levels of society was a meaningful, impactful on them, and it gave them the opportunity to participate in a sport and a recreational activity that they otherwise not have had the opportunity to do so. So respectfully, I submit to council a strong recommendation to proceed with the zoning variance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your information. Any others?
The last listed delegate is James Dace.
Did we get that right?
Yes, sir, you did.
Great. Welcome, Mr. Dace. We look forward to your information.
Thank you. I'm a resident, sir, of 2411 Burnham Thorpe Road.
Sorry.
And I don't mean to undermine or disparage any of the kind words that have been associated with the Golf Practice Center, but I will state that it is, in fact, a business. No matter how many good things he does, it's it's operated for profit and for personal gain or expansion. You see before us a group of residents, and you see before in the hall as well people that don't live in the area. So I would suggest to you that the impact would be far greater on us that live in the area to see 600 trips a day back and forth on the road. What is of paramount concern, or a big concern for me, is there are 2 horse operations in the area, and there are young ladies and women and older people riding on the road every day. Twins, likely, or many people that age. Yes, sir, but I'm just trying to draw, the dramatic effect. I'm a little late. I got off at work at 6, so I'm running behind the clock. I have a grounding in traffic collision analyst along those lines, and I can tell you that the road and the use that you're proposing for the road are far beyond the scope of what the road is capable of providing. And I wouldn't hesitate. I'm a little bit rattled by this suggestion and the visits by Mr. Armitage, because he's been less than truthful in some respects, but that's my observation. I'll leave it there. But if there was to be some sort of circumstance that happened on the road, I've given you a written submission earlier. Nothing would stop me from going out to the parties and providing that written submission to them. I don't think the road is up to the standard for the traffic you're suggesting to place on it. I believe that developers are to shoulder the burden of any improvements to a road, and I would question the town's improvement of the road that would coincide with somebody that's already advertising a golf practice facility at the end of our road that we don't even have the wherewithal to go ahead with. We haven't had the approvals. So I apologize if I seem a little over anxious. I thought I was going to another information session in the atrium, but not in council and chambers.
So look, let me set your mind at ease. We're glad to have you here, and we're here in a relaxed format. We call it Committee of the Whole, but it's designed to try to be less formal and to have conversations and to let people share their information with us, and so we're glad for you to do it. And we're not making a decision tonight. I don't know if you were here when we explained that.
No, sir, I wasn't.
So staff will take into account all the information that they've heard tonight, and maybe I should refine that. Planning staff will take into account all of the information that they heard tonight, but they'll be making a planning recommendation to us, and they won't be making a charity recommendation. They'll be making a planning recommendation. And in planning, land use planning, which is what this council is, I would say, highly animated about. We really take it seriously. What we're concerned about is preventing negative impacts wherever possible, or mitigating them, and so on. So I think you should rest comfortable that council's hearing everything very well in terms of the apprehensions about negative impacts on the community. And to the extent that people have given us information of a planning type nature, which would be things like you're concerned about the traffic, you're concerned about the runoff, the adequacy of the water supply, the appropriateness of the proposal for the area, those would be planning considerations. And in the staff report, if you get a chance to see it, you'll see a number of concerns identified. And in that preliminary report, that's staff saying to the public, we're looking at these issues because we've heard about them and or come up with them ourselves. And tonight is basically to say, is there anything else? And we've heard a few things that the staff, I've noticed, have been penciling away there. So please rest assured that you are being heard.
Just as an addition, Your Worship, I understand that in land use planning, complementary use is a big issue, is a tacit that we tend to follow. And I don't see horses and traffic as being a complementary use, especially on a road that probably isn't designed to handle the traffic we're proposing to place on it. And further to that, we have a number of people in the room that aren't stakeholders to the extent that we are as landowners. And it's nice to come and visit, but there's always somebody there that has to live with the impact. So thank you very much for your time. Did you have a question you want to have?
There may be a question over here. Councillor Adams has a question for you. Let me just, before we go to Councillor Adams, people have made much tonight of the capacity of the existing road, and while that can be a consideration, roads can be changed. So that's not the strongest read on which to rest, but it is a consideration. I just don't want anybody to go away with any false impressions here tonight. So Councillor Adams has a question for you.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I wanted to double check that you understood that this wasn't the town's idea or application. It's their application, not ours. You understand
Yes,
that?
sir, I do.
We're not the ones putting it forward,
Yes.
is what I mean. And do you, so I appreciate your comments. Do you also share the comments of your neighbors around the issues of the water taking and the preservation of the natural lands on the property?
Wholly. I've also been victim of, during very hot weather through one of the summers where we ran low on our well. We're making do with what we can get. This type of facility, I don't think can function without the use of pesticides. It's common. As a matter of fact, I think golf courses enjoy some sort of exclusion they can include chemicals that I can't as a landowner. So to even pretend that a golf course wouldn't use pesticides or chemicals, I believe might be folly. So it may well come.
Thank you very much for your comments and Your Worship. At the appropriate time, I'd like our staff, if they could provide us some insight as to how they're planning to review those particular matters.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Khan?
Thank you very much. Just going on with what the mayor had mentioned about the road and the roads can be changed. Now, this is the road that passes in front of it's called the ranch, right?
It is, sir, yes.
And it's been a while since I've been there, but that was, at that time, there was a gravel road?
It's what I think we used to call it a cold road where they place the surface down and then they roll it, but it's not an actual asphalt top in the conventional sense.
And as I recall, there was a lot of, you had mentioned it, but I was initially thinking it was just the trails, but there are horses and riders that go up and down on that road right to the end. Is that correct?
Every day, sir. They come out. As a matter of fact, beyond the horses and the riders, we have people coming out from town that drop their bikes and ride their bikes. And we also have people that walk on that road. We have a kennel on the corner. There's all manner of people that walk their dogs or even come from within Oakville to enjoy the open space characteristics.
In the past, I also understand that there's been some trouble, not just with the drivers, but ATVs using the different trails in there as well.
16 Mile Creek at the end of our road is a protected area under the, falls within the purview of the Halton Conservation, I believe. And at some stage of the game 2 years ago, the area wound up on a website for people that used motorcycles, ATVs, and four-wheel drives. And the town was very beneficial in this, and the region in assisting us in placing signage, a pretend camera down at the end. And Halton Region Police responded many times, and they've since, it's still there, but we as residents police it. We go down and take a picture and say we don't want any difficulties, but if you don't leave, we'll provide the picture to the Halton Regional Police, and that saves any long talking or hot tempers.
I want to thank you for that. That's a less expensive way of dealing with it. It costs a lot to roll an officer. Thank you very much for your
Thank
information.
you, Worship.
Madam Clerk, any others?
That's the last listed delegation.
Are there any other members of the public with information for council on this matter? Ms. Burton? Welcome.
Good
Council
evening.
looks forward to your information.
Good evening, members of the council, and as well our 5 members of the Municipal Greenbelt Alliance. The amendment before you appears to be a simple request to rezone the use of about 100 acres of vacant land into recreational endeavor that will bring transit of about 700 cars a day into isolated green lands and farmer fields of North Oakville. But these lands that you may see as empty are parts, of course, of the protected Greenbelt lands, Parkway Belt West lands, and Natural Heritage System lands that are now firmly protected by zoning bylaws put in place to prevent exactly what is now being proposed by this development. You are being asked to allow unsuitable overdevelopment in our protected landscapes that were put aside from development to sustain nature and the dependent ecosystems of Oakville. You are being asked to allow to redirect vast quantities of surrounding water supply, both surface and underground, to form ponds where now none exist, to irrigate putting greens rather than meadowlands and woodlots. You are being asked to approve depriving the surrounding established ecosystem of its vitality and polluting this 100 acres of lands with extra pesticides, air pollution, light, and noise. All of these disturbances are extremely disruptive to populations of creatures that live and breed in this ecosystem. These are part of the lands that were put aside to mitigate the effects of urban sprawl and intense development that is overtaking much of the land of Oakville. These protected lands now support both agricultural fields and the grassland bird populations that thrive at the edges of such fields, with adjacent acres of open nature lands, tree canopy, and green infrastructure that supports a myriad of flora and fauna biodiversity. These lands are part of the system we preserved that were recognized to have the function to filter and clean air and clean water that percolates down from this area of the Trafalgar Moraine to the rest of Oakville. We know this is the purpose of these lands because they were included in the Parkway Belt West protected lands, the Natural Heritage System, and finally in the Greenbelt. The use of such lands for active, aggressive recreational pursuit as this driving range, which brings so much disruption to our natural heritage system, appears to me to be in violation of the bylaw that allows mainly for passive recreation within our natural heritage system. So here I am again this evening to request that you uphold the parameters enacted to protect our public open green space and natural heritage system lands. Recent surveys confirm that 84% of Oakville citizens rate the preservation of the town's natural environment as a first priority. Unfortunately, many citizens tonight are not aware that, as well as being asked to reconsider repurposing the use of up to 100 acres of Greenbelt and Parkway West land, Council has already voted in a plan that intends to remove all remaining Parkway Belt West lands remaining in Oakville out of this zoning protection. The Livable Oakville Plan of 2009 intends to lay waste to all the remaining protected Parkway Belt West lands, the open, publicly owned provincial green space and nature lands, and designate these lands for industrial or residential development. I could quote the section if you want, but I won't bother. Ironically, the 134-acre Deerfield Golf Course is part of this publicly owned green infrastructure our council may consider to pave over and demolish for light industrial and residential blight. It's mostly quiet and serene, and it is well established as part of the ecosystem beside the Fort Chimal Creek floodplain. It already has a driving range. Thus, considering to pave the beautiful expanse of the existing 134-acre golf course and fragmenting, isolating, and perhaps destroying up to 100 acres more of protection nature lands, public Parkway Belt Westlands, and Greenbelt lands, I have to ask why. To install a massive driving range? Why? Because we don't have enough golf space? This does not seem reasonable. All of the people tonight supporting the golf center proposal, I am sure are very welcome to attend the golf center and the driving range at the Deerfield Golf Course. Thus, I am respectfully asking you to take the first steps to revitalizing the will of council to protect, not destroy, our nature lands. Thank you very much.
Councillor Khan.
You might be better versed at this. So maybe you can explain to me. You said that it allows for passive recreation. What kind of activities does that include?
Well, I believe in the natural heritage system, the passive recreation is for trails, for hiking, that sort of thing, not to bulldoze out the meadowlands and fields and put in roads and the lights and noise and disturbance. That is not passive. And there are bylaws to protect against that sort of activity.
Thank you, Councillor. Any others? Thank you for your information. Madam Clerk? Any others? All right. Thank you. I'll look for a motion. Councillor Adams.
I would gladly, at the appropriate time, give you the motion for our staff to receive the, or for us to receive the comments. But I'd like our staff, if they could, to describe for my benefit the process that they're going to go through in reviewing the issues of the water taking and the issues of the conformity with the existing plans. And the impacts on, in particular, the impacts on the natural areas that are there.
Through your worship to Councillor Adams, after the meeting this evening, planning staff will take all of the public comments into consideration. And on the technical matters that you referred to, we have a number of submissions that have been made by the applicant, reports addressing those matters that have to be reviewed in detail by staff. On the water taking issue, there may be discussions with the Ministry of the Environment related to the quantity of water and the assessment of that need to take place. And on the issue of the access, road, safety, traffic, all of that information is reviewed by our development engineering staff. And that review encompasses looking at the impacts and the related associated activities for this application in a comprehensive way. The other matter related to the protection of the area and the policies within the Greenbelt Plan and the Parkway Belt Plan will be assessed in detail by planning staff in relation to the application as well. So there is a considerable amount of technical review still to be undertaken, given the existing issues that we've identified and those that have been also identified this evening and reiterated.
Will we be using external or third-party consultants for the issues of the hydrological issues, the water quantity and water quality issues?
Through your worship, my understanding at this point is that through development engineering, we have engineering resources available on staff, as well as those resources available at Conservation Halton to assess those impacts.
And thank you for confirming that Conservation Halton's involved. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Councillor Lapworth.
Thank you. I have a question for staff too. Did Mr. Armitage provide you with vehicular volumes for the street?
My understanding is that we do have a traffic impact study that has been submitted with the proposal that should provide within its scope that information.
Because tonight we heard two numbers, 300 a day and 700 is quite a difference.
We will, through our review, address that matter.
Councillor Demoff.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, a number of people came here tonight talking about this was the only place they could do a number of these things. The former family golf site, was this owned by the same person? You may not know that. And because I saw their ad as well that they were being forced to close, all these golf courses are closing in Oakville. I'm just curious how we ended up with them being at this site. Do you know?
Through your worship, I don't know the exact details other than the site that they currently operate under is through a lease My understanding is that lease is terminated. I don't know any more details than that.
Fine, thank you.
Maybe for the public's benefit, I'll just add, this is a planning application. It's considered on its planning merits under the Planning Act. And so whether the person leased or owned or whatever, none of that's relevant to a planning decision. What's relevant to a planning decision is, does it meet the tests of the Planning Act, and does it fit our official plan? That's, it boils down to, does it fit our official plan? And I hope with that, everybody can patiently await for the recommendation report, which in a few months will appear. I know, Councillor Adams, you wanted to move receipt of the public comments, but before I allow you to do that, I might ask the ward councillor if he'd like to do it. Councillor Lapworth moves the recommendation.
Yeah, I'd like to move the staff recommendation and to receive all the comments made this evening by the members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. All right, that brings us to our discussion item, which is the recommendation report for the zoning bylaw amendment and the Mirabel developments on Pine Grove Road. And because of the number here for the golf course or the driving range, if you people don't want to stay for the rest of our exciting business, we could have a 2-minute recess for you to leave without disrupting us. Would you like to do that? All right. We have a 2-minute break, Council. Okay, Council, we seem to have had a change of audience now, and we can take up the matter on the agenda, item number 3, and Mr. Barrett will once again be our guide. Mr. Barrett?
Members of Council, a recommendation report has been provided for the zoning bylaw amendment application. This presentation will provide a brief overview of the staff report. The report can be found on page 87 to 126 of tonight's agenda. The subject lands are located on the north side of Pine Grove Road across from Wendell Place, on the northern fringe of a residential area at the interface between the neighborhood and a business commercial area. The subject lot was created as part of a plan of subdivision in 1955 and contributes to an irregular lotting pattern where over half of the subject lands are surrounded by the business commercial uses. However, access to the site is provided through the residential neighborhood from Pine Grove Road. Construction of the plaza took place in the early 1960s. In June 2012, the applicant submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application to permit 50 residential units in 3 stories above the existing and expanded plaza. In discussion with staff and in response to public input received, the proposal has been reduced in scale and now provides for 40 residential units in 2 stories above the existing and expanded plaza. That is a reduction of 10 units and 1 story in height. The existing surface parking lot which separates the plaza from the neighborhood is proposed to be maintained and will continue to be used by patrons of the commercial plaza. Adequate parking for the new residential units will be accommodated behind the plaza. Improvements including new walkways, landscaping will be secured through the required site plan application. Side yard setbacks have also been increased to provide for 2-way access around the building, to preserve existing trees, and to provide enhanced landscaping. The net density of this development will be 49 units per site hectare. The subject lands are designated neighborhood commercial in the Livable Oakville Plan. Section 13.5.1 states that residential uses above ground floor retail and service commercial uses may also be permitted. Section 13.1 of the plan provides that intensification and redevelopment of existing commercial centers is intended to be the primary means of accommodating additional retail uses to meet future growth needs, and that impacts from such development on surrounding neighborhoods shall be mitigated through zoning provisions and site plan design. The lands are located within a residential area on Schedule A1 urban structure in the Livable Oakville Plan. Section 4.3 of the plan provides that intensification outside of growth areas will be considered in the context of the plan, and that some growth and change may occur within stable residential communities, provided that the character of the area is preserved and overall urban structure of the town is upheld. The site is zoned C1. Residential uses are not permitted in the C1 zone, and as such, a zoning bylaw amendment is required. The subject lands are located on the northern fringe of a residential area at the interface between the neighborhood and a business commercial area. Over half of the subject lands are surrounded by these business commercial uses. However, access to the site is provided through the neighborhood. Given the unique lotting pattern and the established and relatively large separation distance provided from the commercial plaza to the surrounding land uses, the proposed intensification is at an appropriate scale. The existing and established spatial relationship to the surrounding area will be maintained. Adequate separation distance and landscape strips have been protected for, and enhanced landscaping will be provided for through the required site plan application. Staff found that the proposed intensification maintains the character of the area. The subject lands are not located in a growth area. Livable Oakville provides that the majority of intensification is to occur in such growth areas, and that intensification outside of growth areas will be considered in the context of the plan, provided that the character of the area is maintained and that the overall urban structure of the town is upheld. The proposal represents an appropriate build form and scale of intensification for the subject lands. The intent of the neighborhood commercial designation is to provide for a range of retail and service commercial uses for the adjacent neighborhood. Residential uses above commercial uses may also be permitted. As the existing commercial plaza is proposed to be maintained together with a 327 square meter addition, the planned function of the site will not be impacted. A number of potential impacts on the surrounding area were reviewed. In terms of overall design, the proposed addition represents an appropriate scale of intensification. The realigned site access, sidewalks, and improvement to the public realm will contribute to good urban design and will strengthen the connection of the plaza to the neighborhood. Further urban design considerations will be addressed as part of the site plan application. Area noise sources were reviewed, and it was found that the proposed development is feasible. Noise mitigation between the commercial and residential units will be provided in accordance with the Ontario Building Code requirements as part of the building permit review. In terms of traffic, nearby intersections are operating at acceptable levels of service, and the existing road network is expected to be able to accommodate the traffic generated by the proposed development without any improvements. The functional servicing report submitted with the application found that the site can be adequately serviced by the utilizing existing service connections. As part of the site plan application, an updated functional servicing report will be required, which demonstrates that the local sanitary sewer and water main system has adequate capacity. As part of the criteria to lift the proposed holding provision, the applicant will be required to provide a record of site condition to the satisfaction of the town and Halton region. Tenure of the 40 new residential units is proposed to be rental. Pursuant to Section 11 of the Livable Oakville Plan, an appropriate mix of housing types, densities, and tenure is encouraged, together with an adequate supply of rental housing and appropriate housing for all socioeconomic groups. Comments on the proposal varied from full support to concerns about certain aspects, including traffic, conformity with applicable policy, height and scale, tenure, stormwater management and grading, construction traffic, residential parking ratio, noise, servicing capacity, number of units, site access, lighting impacts, tree preservation, maintenance, and site-specific zoning. The foregoing concerns were addressed through design revisions, including reduction in the number of units, overall height, and increased setbacks, the staff report, including staff's review of the application, and the remaining items such as tree preservation, lighting, site access, will be addressed as part of the site plan application. Staff recommends approval of this application for the following reasons. The addition of 40 residential units in the form of 2 stories above the existing commercial plaza conforms to the Livable Oakville Plan, including Section 13.5 regarding the neighborhood commercial designation and Section 14.3 regarding residential intensification outside of growth areas. There are no unacceptable adverse impacts on the surrounding area identified as part of the review of the application. The proposal represents an appropriate built form of intensification with limited site coverage and adequate buffers, which will maintain the spatial relationship to the surrounding area and not impact the overall urban structure of the town. The proposal will not impact the planned function of the site to provide a range of retail and service commercial uses to the adjacent neighborhood. The addition of rental units will contribute to a more balanced housing tenure, which is an objective of the Livable Oakville Plan. A full circulation has been undertaken, and there are no outstanding concerns with the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Site plan considerations such as parking layout, urban design, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, tree preservation, and walkways will be provided for as part of the required site plan approval application. In conclusion, Your Worship, staff put forth the following recommendation for Council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. We have a few questions from Council, and we have 5 delegations indicated. Councillor Bird?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. How do we address parkland? Are we going to take cash in lieu of parkland, or is there dedication required here?
Through you, Your Worship, cash in lieu of parkland will be required for this application.
So would that, I'm looking at the map on page 91, it looks like the closest park land or open space to this would be some 5 blocks away. So it's, and it looks like the site is relatively tight. You're not proposing public park on the land. There's no land to dedicate, so in all likelihood it would be a cash in lieu request?
That's correct, cash in lieu request.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Councillor Dudek.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. In the body of the report, when you responded to the traffic and the roadway concerns, and there's reference, respond appropriately should the characteristics warrant a response. Does that mean that there is an opportunity, should there, even though we're saying there shouldn't be an issue because the studies indicate that it is able to take with the roadway patterns and everything, but in the event something should, heaven forbid, is there a provision whereby we could take some sort of action to mitigate any possible? I know sometimes with some things it's not possible, but I'm thinking given the roadway here, we do have options available to us, do we not?
Your Worship, there are, and I believe that the comments in the staff report refer to the fact that it will be monitored, as would any other development afterwards. And if Mr. Kelly wants to add anything to that.
Yes, all answers through you, Mr. Worship. So any road in Oakville is eligible for traffic calming, for example. So if in the future, if an issue or reported issues were to arise, there's a formal process to go through to request traffic calming, and then the engineering and construction group can look into it. So that is available for all roads in Oakville.
So just to confirm that studies would, again, even though we've done studies now, in the future, should something be expressed in terms of a concern, we would have studies that would have to be completed in order to verify that such action is warranted, correct?
That's correct.
I recall during one of the public meetings, there was a question that arose about access to Spears Road, that there's access existing now where people can walk through, not drive through. And I'm just wondering, yeah, pedestrian access. I can't tell from the site plan if that's being maintained. I know at the time of the meeting, we were told that it would be, and I'm just wondering whether that will be maintained or not.
Through you, Your Worship, there is a pedestrian path through the site to access the bus route on Spears Road. The applicant has expressed intentions to maintain that path as part of the site plan application. However, part of the path does go across private property, which the applicant does not own, so they don't have full control over that path.
Thank you.
Alrighty then, let's hear from the public. Madam Clerk, would you call the delegations?
Yes, we have Andrew McEwen.
Welcome, sir. Council looks forward to your information.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. So, as a new resident to Oakville, I actually recently moved into 493 Pine Grove, which is immediately west to the proposed build site. And I was aware, obviously, of the proposed build. I did some research into it and went onto your website, looked at the great pictures and the renderings that you guys did. And I unfortunately assumed that the units were going to be condo style for people to purchase. So my concern is with the rental units, will there be an impact on the housing prices in the neighborhood being dropped down as far as, and as well as the house is actually the resale value going down. So that's one of the concerns that I have. After, like, in at first, as I said before, I saw the plans and it looked great. And after moving into the neighborhood and realizing a lot of the buildings are bungalow style, and seeing the new plans for the 3-story building, it seems like it's a little bit out of scale for the neighborhood. Like, I believe a 2-story building would suit just fine and it wouldn't be too obtrusive. As far as the original, and again, like this is the first meeting I've been able to come to about this plan because we recently moved into the location there. But in the original proposal, it seemed like a good concern to the proposed builder was that a lot of the businesses were not viable and they weren't profitable. And for me, that's kind of hard to believe because there is no vacant businesses in the Pine Grove Plaza. 8 of the 10 are actually don't require foot traffic. So they're businesses that don't require people to actually walk by to go into. These are businesses that you actually seek after. And there's one concern that I personally have is that one of the sidewalks is actually being, on the proposed plan, is being built directly into my driveway on 493. And a week or two ago, I went door to door to engage with the community, ask some questions, get some feedback from the community. And I quickly realized that there's a strong language barrier in that neighborhood, Portuguese and Italian. A lot of empty nest families, so it was difficult for me to actually communicate with the families in the neighborhood about the build. And when I did come across someone that was able to speak English or communicate with the homeowner, what I found was that a lot of the people actually decided not to come to the meetings in fear that would show support instead of coming and voicing your opinions on concern for the build. And that, the other is issue, well, we already talked about traffic. When I'm coming out my driveway on most mornings, it takes five minutes to get out just because of the amount of traffic that Pine Grove Road has. A lot of the traffic, I believe, is actually is being used as a Spears bypass. And thank you for listening. That's everything I have.
Thank you for your information. Thank you, sir. Next delegation.
Next delegation is Steve Sousa.
Mr. Sousa? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Steve Souza. Thank you, Council. I'm a resident of 403 Pine Grove. I'm also a business owner at 495 Pine Grove. I'm just kind of wondering, like, why it's been taking so long. Like, I've been, like, for a store owner, it also affects our business because a lot of our clients from our location come from outside of town. So we bring you know, money into the town, which, yes, does also bring traffic. But as a resident as well, I also notice at 10 o'clock at night, there's motorcycles flying by at 120 kilometers an hour by the time they've passed my resident from Morden. And it's just been a bit of a concern. So I understand where some of our neighbors are concerned with traffic and stuff like that. But like I said in the last meeting, you know, maybe throwing in a couple of stop signs would help stop all the traffic flow. That maybe control the speed as well. And yeah, I just, you know, it hurts the businesses as well because people look at the plaza and they, you know, around our neighborhood, they're putting up multi-million-dollar homes in the area. So it is they are redeveloping there. Everybody's getting permits and they're building homes and it's changing. And there's a lot of people that don't want change because they've been there so long. But the problem is there's new families moving in and everybody wants to rebuild their homes. And you can't have a plaza that looks like it's falling apart, you know. And even with that, having, you know, just now it's gone down to 2 floors. I don't think it's obstructing any views. I mean, unless it's like, you know, is it going to be an eyesore to Spears, you know? So to me, it's not so much that if if our people have problems with that, I think, throw an officer. Again, they were doing it for a while there in front of the plaza. That's a great way for revenue for Oakville, because, I mean, in 2 hours, I saw an officer pull over 11 cars, sitting from my business watching them do it. And it's great because, we do have children in the neighborhood. And you don't want to see cars going up the road at 80 because they're, trying to cut the fourth line. So, I mean, I don't think that should have anything, towards the plaza. Plus, the plaza is also going to be very eco-friendly. They wanted to put an open garden in the front with solar power panels and stuff, so it'd be very eco-friendly. They want to keep the trees. The trees are all along the side, so even if they do the back there, there's no big trees in the middle that they'll be chopping down. So I just hope that the council, takes it into good consideration that, it would be nice and it would give it more that classy Oakville look. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. I take it from what you said, you're in support of the recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next delegate.
Rene Vaz.
Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I live on 520 Pangro for 55 years, and the traffic is unbelievable. I got to turn around in my driveway to get out because the cars are flying. The second thing is, 10 years ago, the plaza was increased with 1 unit, and it was denied because there's a bridge have to be built. The road is not strong enough for it. The sewers is not done. And rental, if there's a condominium, I won't have no trouble. My rental, no, I don't agree with it. In the neighborhood, this gentleman said the people do not understand the language. That's the trouble. We have only 3 here. The sewers have to be done. The road have to be fixed. I have a wet basement. The sump pump goes all year when there is snow. The cars flying by till 10 o'clock at night, it is unbearable. If you get another 80 and 100 cars from that plaza, I never get out of the driveway. I can't see it anymore. There are a lot of things have to be done. I mean, the plaza is a mess. It's a jungle. So once in a while, somebody cleans it up. It's awful. Look at the pavement when we look up. No, I don't agree with the increase. The plaza is fine. I have no trouble with it. But getting another 80 people, we never get out of the driveway. 10 years ago, the town didn't have no money to fix the road. The bridge, the little bridge, have to be because for the traffic. And there's a few people made letters to the town to get it fixed. It's unbearable. And the dust that comes from the road, the cars, heavy trucks, it goes steady. It's unbearable, sir. It's unbearable. If that goes through. There are a lot of more. I can't see it anymore. That's my eyesight is going. Where it's not. We got a few years ago. I tried to get the councillor to come down. No, you never get it. Never get it. I got a few animals. It's unreal. That's all I can say. You get another 150 cars on the plaza coming, and you never get out of the driveway. And I can't even go across the street with the dog because I get killed. It takes me 10 minutes from one side to the other side, and the councillor knows it. Because the cars are just flying by. You don't stop. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, sir. Madam Clerk, the next delegation.
The next delegation is C. Jansen. I don't have the first name, sorry.
Mr. Jansen, welcome. Could you perhaps share your first name with us?
Pardon?
Could you tell us your first name?
First name is Cor.
Cor,
Cor,
just like you wrote.
short of Cornelius.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to your information.
I live on 527 Pine Grove, 3 houses down, and we quite often in the morning sit outside, have a cup of coffee, and the cars coming by, speeding like crazy. From both sides, from the fourth line and coming from Warren Road. And something has to be done about it. We had a radar control this afternoon. There was one policeman down there.
Sorry, Your Worship, can we just ask the gentleman just to speak into the mic? We can't hear. If you can just raise the mic, please.
Oh,
perfect. That's
okay.
right.
Sorry. And we had the police down there with the radar and stopping the cars. So soon as he has stopped one, the next one's going just speeding by. And that's day and night. So we'd like to see something done about that. Then, I would know, maybe 10, 12 years ago, they did some work on Pine Grove and the sewers. They always thought, by our house, they stopped, they couldn't go any further because the little bridge over the creek had to be fixed first. And it will come on the next budget. We haven't seen nothing yet. And we're still in the houses, we're still the old way. We don't have straight sewers, we get sub pumps. And I think that's not necessary in these days anymore. So can town do something about it? Fix it up before we go ahead? I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Well, thank you for saying it.
You're welcome.
Questions? Sir, thank you for coming and sharing your information. Madam Clerk? That's it? Are there any other members of the public with information for council on this matter? Sir, would you come down and introduce yourself and share your information, please?
Sorry I didn't sign in earlier there. I wasn't sure if I was going to have anything to say or not. My name's Mike Burnside. I live on 433 Pine Grove. We've been there, my wife and I, for 6 years. We have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old living with us. I guess the biggest concern for the proposal and planning's not having much problem with the traffic is I shudder to think what an unacceptable level of traffic would be. Every resident that I've heard speak that lives on Pine Grove Road that is not associated with the development has had problems with the traffic on that road. We are constantly dealing with noise from that road. I'm sure everybody likes to go to sleep with their windows open in the fall, nice cool breeze. It's impossible. If you're facing Pine Grove Road, you'll be woken up at 6 in the morning until 8 o'clock, just a constant drone of traffic riding up and down that street. There is absolutely no impediments to them. You can drive along Rebecca and you'll hit a stoplight at Southview in front of the YMCA. You can drive along Spears and you'll hit a traffic light. And I'm speaking between Fourth Line, and Morden. So that's just the obvious straightaway with the least amount of impediments. And we've got the light set up now. If you're coming westbound on Spears, making a left-hand turn onto Morden, we have a great advancing green that will get at least 13 cars through a light now that will allow them to then filter onto Pine Grove and bypass all the trouble along Spears because of that traffic. It's an easy bypass and everybody seems to use it. Now you're going to add extra traffic associated with an extra 40 units in a C1 zone. I guess that amendment for the C1 would also include an extra story above it because I thought C1 zoning was 2 stories, a main floor and a second story. The proposal has a 3rd story, which I was under the impression C1 did not allow. That's probably a part of the amendment, I'm sure. I thought I had something else for you, but obviously the concern is the traffic and the speed. I've talked to both Councillor Diddick and Demoff in the past, and they said there was a speed survey done, I believe it was last summer, but it was a day in the summertime, from my understanding, and it revealed very little speeding going along Pine Grove. I don't know if you could find a resident on Pine Grove that doesn't believe there's an issue with speeding on that road. But it is what it is, I guess. But I would be concerned about that C1 zoning variance as well.
Thank you for your information. Would you entertain a question?
Absolutely.
What time of year would you find, would we find the worst evidence of speeding?
I'd say probably in the fall, when you're dealing with children going back to school and everybody's a little more rushed. Everybody's schedule seems to be a little bit different when you're running in the middle of the summer. My impression was it was in the middle of June, I think, so the end of the school year. I don't know if you have that speed survey or not.
So would sometime between September and the end of October be a better sample in your?
It would be, but I was under the impression the speed survey does not necessarily give you traffic volume. I thought the original application relied on the developer's own private traffic study. So that would be the concern, is I'm sure to get an average speed you have to know how many cars are traveling along the road.
Well, I'm just chasing the criticism of the summer study.
Yeah.
And
my concern is that people are more, absolutely. So I guess my concern with the summer study is that more people than not would take their vacation with their children during the summer, so they would be less likely to be at home rushing to work or rushing to school, whereas during the school year I think you would find a better sample.
So the September and October, those 8 weeks or so would be a better time?
Absolutely. I think any time other than June, July, August would probably be adequate, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'm moved by what I've heard about the traffic, that with or without the development, we need to pay some attention to this and maybe do our testing in a better time.
Yeah.
So independent of this, I'll be pursuing that. And I thank you and everyone else for bringing that to our attention.
I appreciate you listening.
Thanks for your time. Mr. Vos?
Yeah, the only trouble is
Mr. Vos, if you want me to hear you, you'll have to use the microphone.
The only trouble is that the people on the street, there is 99 homes, and nobody speaks English. There's Portuguese, and when you talk about it, well, nothing to do with it. I try to get 50 people here, 50, and we only showed up with 3 or 4 or 5, because they don't understand what goes on.
Okay, we were discussing additional traffic studies, not language.
No, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, sir, if the people would understand the language and know what goes on, then they would be here to protest. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say.
We actually heard that earlier. You said that earlier.
Yeah, I just want to remind you.
Well,
That's all.
thank you for repeating it. I think we get it. Councillor Demoff. Sir, thank you for your time.
Okay.
Councillor Demoff.
I was just going to let you know that the previous survey was done June 14th, 2012.
Yes, Mr. Burnside indicated that it was June. I'm concerned that any neighborhood should be as livable as possible, and it seems to me that we heard enough from enough residents this time and the last time that we should take another look at it. And at another time, I'll work with you, the ward councilors, to bring forward a request for an additional bit of work on that. That, I think, concludes the public input on this. Council, I'll look to you for your motion.
I'll give you a motion to approve the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that carries. That brings us to the item number 4, the recommendation report for the draft plan of condominium on Edgemere Estates. And Lee Musson is here if you have a need for the summary. Council, what's your, Councillor Bird, Councillor Giddings, what's your disposition here?
Unless there's someone here from the public, I don't see any need for the presentation.
Lee, don't get fired up just yet. Let me check. Are there members of the public here with information or interest in this item? This is the Edgemere Estate draft plan of condominium, a relatively routine matter. I don't see anyone. Councillor Giddings?
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to move the staff recommendation.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. Thank you, Lee. Appreciate you being here. Council, we now turn to item number 5, which is the Halton Region Water and Wastewater Allocation Program. And if you'll give your attention to Scott Hanna, he'll update you on his memo and the slightly revised or modified resolution before you. Mr. Hanna.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Town Council. I'm here tonight to provide you with a staff recommendation on the 2012 Halton Region Water and Wastewater Allocation Program. If we could get the presentation up, it would be nice. Fantastic. Over the next few minutes, I intend to spend a few moments talking about the purpose of the program, the background of the program itself, and summarize the requests that we've received, explain how staff have evaluated the requests, and provide you with a summary and recommendation. As the Mayor has mentioned, there is also a memo related to this report in front of you with some additional information and an updated resolution, and I will speak to that closer to the end of my presentation. So the purpose of the allocation program is it helps to finance capital works required by the region of Halton to deliver additional servicing to greenfield areas. It's a very unique program to Halton Region, and it's a very good example of a pay-as-you-go approach to new development. So in other words, it's where developers pay to secure and ensure servicing before they are allowed to develop. The program requires the developers to enter into several agreements to execute an allocation agreement with the region and to also execute what is known as a front-ending agreement. And that's where they prepay their proportional costs based on the number of what we refer to as single detached equivalents, which is defined in the report. Just in terms of a little bit of background, the 2012 program was initiated back in April of 2012, but it was put on hold due to appeals to the Regional Development Charges Bylaw. When that was resolved, the program was reinitiated this year in May 31st, and we received a request from the region in July for consideration of the expressions of interest. And that's really the reason why we're here tonight. The program for Oakville provides for up to 6,000 new single detached equivalents, and to this point we've received 4,897, although that number has been slightly adjusted through recent activity, which will be explained in the memo. The program itself is expected to span from now until 2016, although there is the end of 2016, although there is the possibility of it being extended slightly. A number of factors were considered by staff in evaluating the requests. Some of these factors are laid out in the slide in front of you, but they're also laid out in more detail on page 4 of your report, which is page 142 of your council package. These factors include conformity with the phasing and growth management policy of the North Oakville East Secondary Plan, the provision of adequate infrastructure, our housing mix objectives, and ensuring complete communities and neighborhoods. Also considered was the status of the development applications themselves, and the way I like to explain this is the question was, is it reasonable that the development receive the appropriate approvals and be in position to service and build by the end of 2016. If they weren't able to do that, there was a case, at least one example, where we thought the recommendation should be not to support the allocation. So the complete allocation or the complete evaluation of requests begins on page 143 of your agenda package through to 149. Very quickly, I have a couple of visuals. This is a very interesting map which shows all of the allocation requests that we've received and the location of same. It also includes some of the developments that were part of the 2009 allocation program, which have now achieved draft plan approval and have been registered. Most of the ones that you will note that we've received in allocation request are actually in circulation and under consideration. And again, that's Appendix B of your report. We also received a summary of the requests from the region, which I also included in the report, and this provides where the 4,897 SDEs came from. So very quickly in summary, the majority of the requests, as you note in the report, were fully or conditionally supported by staff. They've all been able to achieve the factors that we use to consider the requests. And just a couple of examples, most of these requests are in phase 1 area of the secondary plan. Again, most are very active development applications that are well advanced so far in the review process. And sometime over the next 6 months to a year, we expect they will be presented to you for consideration. And those that we have supported provide community benefits. I would mention a couple of the requests are included in phase 2 of your secondary plan. They're located northerly along 6th line. As mentioned in the report, the secondary plan does provide some flexibility to bring on those lands, provided certain things occur, and that is the development of employment lands are brought on, 25 hectares, and Trafalgar urban core lands are also brought on. And staff have provided a positive recommendation against those requests, feeling that those two matters can be considered and they will be supported by your phasing policies. There was only one property that was not recommended for allocation, and when we get to the memo in a second, I'll explain why it was not and what the status of that is. 2 points about the, in summary, about the requests themselves. The fact that we are requesting or supporting allocation does not indicate approval of the associated subdivision or development. I want to be very clear on that. Nor does it predetermine the number of dwelling units that could be approved as part of the development. So that's still up to council to decide when these applications come forward. Full technical review will still be required, and modifications, as you note by the report, are expected to fulfill technical and design requirements. So before we get to the final recommendation, the memo in front of you explains a couple of changes that have occurred since we've written the report. The first is that one of the developments known as Green Ginger have asked that their allocation be increased from 65 single detached equivalents to 94, an addition of 29 SDEs. And that was based on comments received back from review agencies and staff. They've modified their plan, which is yet to be considered by council, but includes also an increase in density. The second piece is that the one plan that we did recommend not in favor of for allocation at 40 Burnhamthorpe Road East. I'm going to mess up the name, so I'm not even going to try to say it, but it starts with a G and ends with Donato. So that's as far as I'm going to try, Your Worship. But we have met with the representatives of that individual property. We've also looked at their preliminary plans for development and the expected timing of when they would like to proceed vis-a-vis when we think they would be ready to proceed. And based on those discussions, it is our understanding that they will be withdrawing their request to the region, which is in keeping, again, with what staff has suggested. And in keeping with these minor modifications, and Green Ginger being an example of one, what we are suggesting in this memo is that minor adjustments in the future be handled at a staff level by our director. So the regional allocation program does allow for minor increases of up to 10 additional SDEs, but may include other amounts, similar to what Green Ginger has requested. And what we are suggesting is that the Director of Planning Services be authorized to grant those minor changes as defined, provided that, of course, the changes are supported by our evaluation factors and also conform to the region's policies. So the final recommendation that you have in front of you now is 3 parts. The first part is unchanged from the original report. The second clause deals with the amended allocation request from the Green Ginger development, which has full staff support. And the third clause is dealing with the request to allow the Director of Planning Services to be authorized to grant minor changes. Your Worship, that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna, for a concise presentation. Are there members of the public here with information for council on this matter? I don't see any. Council, do any of you have questions? Thank you, Council. Mr. Hanna, I have two questions for you. First, could you illustrate for council and the public what sort of community benefits you might have been talking about on that earlier slide?
The community benefits, Your Worship, that we're referring to are things like parks and school sites that many of the plans of subdivision have, and the ability of providing transit service as outlined by our secondary plan policies. So most of the plans that we are recommending do have those community facilities within them.
So they're sort of strategic pieces of the development of North Oakville then?
That's correct.
Rather than extra community benefits?
Correct.
Second question. Let's go back to that question of the appeals. I got the impression from your slide that the appeals might have been settled, but I'm not sure that's actually the case. Could you speak a little bit about that?
They aren't officially settled as yet, but we're hoping that the plans that we did discuss in there we will see a new plan and we will see a withdrawal of the appeal.
Okay. My information today is that everyone's agreed to withdraw. The distinction I'm trying to make here for the public is we didn't settle this, they withdrew. And this is important because this was a very big battle. In fact, this was a gigantic battle. This was over who's going to finance residential infrastructure, the taxpayer or the builder. And councils at the local level and the regional level steadfastly and unanimously maintained that it must be the developers, not the taxpayer. To put it as bluntly as I can, the town has a credit rating of AAA, the best you can have, and the best credit rating of the developers is BB, and that's, to put it kindly, not the best credit rating you can have. And there was no way that council wanted to become the bank for the developers. So my information today is that all of the appeals are indeed withdrawn, but paperwork assuring that has not yet been completed by every single one of them, and so we're another cycle away. Is that your understanding?
Your Worship, I've been corrected by our director in that I was actually I was referring to a couple of appeals related to the original plans of subdivision within the report. I think you were referring to the DC appeals at the regional level.
I am.
So
in
I apologize for the confusion.
So we weren't talking to the same thing.
No, we
but
weren't.
Now that you understand what I'm asking about, do you confirm and understand? Is your understanding the same as mine?
I don't have a lot of, unfortunately, Your Worship, a lot of knowledge of where those appeals stand at the regional level.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to go with my version then. All right. I appreciate the opportunity to bring a little extra clarity to this. I spoke about this in February at my speech at the Chamber, and I said that these appeals were the biggest threat to our finances and our stability as a community. And I'm as happy as I know how to be that we seem to have prevailed in the matter, but it certainly has taken a long time. Council, if I haven't sparked any questions, I'll look for a motion. Councillor Knoll?
Your Worship, I'll move the motion that is contained in the modified resolution on the circulated memo and that we see in front of us right now.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? And that does carry. Council, that brings us to the two remaining items, which is the Heritage Committee report and the confidential consent item. Councillor Duddick? Councillor Duddick is moving the Heritage recommendations as written. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And those are adopted. Councillor, do you still need to go into camera on C1? Then could you give it, I'll take it that you're giving us a motion to go into camera for a matter dealing with litigation or potential litigation, which is a permitted use of a meeting closed to the public under the Municipal Act. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that carries. Madam Clerk, could you rig the room for a meeting closed to the public? All right, council now resumes its public meeting. Council has met briefly in a meeting closed to the public for the purpose of considering a matter of litigation or potential litigation and given direction to legal staff. Council, I could now appreciate a motion to rise and report. Councillor Lapworth, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. I rise and report that council has met and committee of the whole and made recommendations on consent item 1, public hearing item 2, discussion items 3, 4, and 5, advisory committee minutes item 6 as noted by the clerk, and did we capture the confidential consent item? And the confidential consent item number 1. And if I could have a mover and seconder for my report, Councillor Johnston and Councillor Khan, did I see your hand? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The report is adopted. I know there's something else here. Council, does anyone have any new business? You've had enough for the evening, have you? Then a motion and a seconder for the bylaws would be in order. Councillor Grant and Councillor Adams, thank you. This is for the bylaws 2013-77, 79, 83, and 87, the confirmatory bylaw. All those in favor? Those against? The bylaws are adopted. That completes our agenda. Thank you very much for your time and attention tonight. It's been great working with you, and we are adjourned.